Of course, of course. Hey, what's going on, Miguel, host of Life Full Circle Radio. I'll fix my camera once I bring Kia in. Post-mortem, we're getting into our what happened with the election conversation. Um, Trump won, landslide, seven battleground states, wasn't close. By 10:30, 11, I was like, let me want to turn this off because there's no reason to watch anymore of this. And so it is what it is. So we can get into this conversation. What did the Dems do right? What did Trump do wrong? And what are we in for coming in about a month and a half? All right, follow us on all the social medias. And super producer, I'm gonna go to one shot so I can go and figure out my camera, which was fine just a minute ago when we were in our pre-meeting. And then as soon as I turned on the show, here we go. All right, be right back.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lighthearted Soccer Radio, and there is so much to talk about. So we didn't have a show on Monday, but we definitely celebrate all of our veterans. Happy Veterans Day. Miguel and I both have veterans. His wife is a very successful veteran. Love her to pieces. My father is a veteran. My mother is actually the first Black woman in the state of Florida to enroll in the National Guard. So she is a super veteran. And my brother was in the Navy. He's a veteran as well. So veterans are close to our heart. But we just didn't do the show. It was a holiday. And plus, we wanted to gather so much information. And we were trying to wait and see how the Trump administration was going to roll out. And it rolled out, I don't even know how to describe it, that wouldn't make us get kicked off the air, because it rolled out like a wet fart covered in a wet poop covered in my dead dog. Like, it was just, it's a lot going on. So where would you like to begin?
Well, it's what he's doing right now. Voting has consequences. So folks decided this is what you wanted, and some 11 million people decided they didn't want to vote. They stayed home. He won with 72 million. Joe Biden won with 81 million. And so there's that. I don't even know what she got. I forgot the number. But the point is that it wasn't even close. And so you look at this thing and you say, what happened? And so there's quite a few things that happened. You got Bernie Sanders out there in the streets. He's basically talking about how the Democrats continue, and he's been saying this for years. Let's just say his drum is consistent, that they don't take
Yeah.
the working class as seriously as it should. The most effective ad that I saw here in Georgia, and we've talked about this. We talked about you over there. We've talked about the difference in you not being in a battleground state and me being in Georgia in a battleground state, and the difference in the ads that we're being fed. And the part that the Democrats failed to realize is that traditional media wasn't it. Paying Beyonce $10 million and Meg Thee Stallion $5 million to come to their rallies wasn't it. The podcast bros were important. The Joe Rogans of the world were important. And so, but the most effective ad that I saw was the transgender ad that ran in Florida a lot. And it featured
Georgia.
Charlamagne the God. It featured, obviously, Kamala. And the Democrats had no rebuttal. They had no response to it. And because the way ads were running, I don't know how they were running in Florida. And we talked about this because Charlamagne was featured in the ad. We saw him coming out. He's going to do a cease and desist to make them stop running this ad. And I knew Trump was going to throw the middle finger and say, man, we're going to do what we want to do. And you said in Florida that you didn't see the ad anymore after you saw that come out. Here, every break, we saw that ad.
Yeah.
When I'm watching football, and what they would do here is that they would go back and forth. If they ran a Trump ad, they would run a Harris ad. Run a Trump ad, run a Harris ad. They ran that ad over and over and over again. And so it really came down to me, the people that were in the margins who were making decisions, because we know 40% of people were going to vote for Trump regardless. 40% were going to vote for Harris regardless. So then you had that 20% that were making these decisions, and those independents who had these I like to call them a non-party issues, looked at the trans conversation, they looked at the economy, and they said, and then of course there's always the biggest one that's on the board is misogyny / white supremacy, And I've had people who I've had conversations with, who I trust, who I respect, who have relationships with folks on both sides of the aisle. And he said, Miguel, folks got to stop saying all Trump supporters are racist. They're not all racist. And I agree with that. All Republicans are not. All
No,
Republicans.
no, no, no. What I'm saying is, because I'm a
Yeah,
Republican, I'm not racist.
sure.
I'm a black woman, I'm not racist at all. But what me
Yeah,
and Miguel have consistently said, all Trump supporters are not racist, but all racists are Trump supporters. And
right,
to the everyday American, it's hard to
right.
tell the difference which is which. And that's the problem.
Absolutely.
He said it
Absolutely.
consistently since the first time he ran. That's just what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when it came down to people who quietly were watching that ad, who were quietly watching the ads talking about the economy, and they would find clips of Harris bumbling on the question. There was a question, I think she was on The View, and they asked her what would she do differently from what Joe Biden has done, and her response was nothing. She couldn't think of anything. Um, and the Harris campaign did not have enough of a response. Their response was to have more rallies, to have more conversations that were not hitting the grassroots. But we're gonna play. I'm gonna play a couple of clips and things
Well,
that I got set up. But go ahead and jump in. I'm gonna give you a chance
let
to
me jump
respond.
in really quick. I think she messed up with the whole, like you said, new media is the way a lot of people went. Trump went new media this time around, which made more sense. She did not go as new media as she needed to. She got in a little bit. She got in the Shannon Sharp podcast. That's fine, whatever. She got in a couple other podcasts, but she didn't want to go on Joe Rogan, which is fine. But why didn't she go on the equivalent of Joe Rogan? Everybody knows in the black community, the equivalent of Joe Rogan is Joe Budden. So they're both named Joe. And I don't even know if she even asked to go on the Joe Budden podcast because, Miguel does not watch Joe Budden, but Joe Budden has a
No.
massive,
Hmm.
massive platform in the black community. It is huge. Whatever he does gets picked up by every single black outlet. Everybody talks about it if it's something viral, and they would have talked about that if she
Joe
would have
Rogan,
sat.
not Joe Biden. No, Joe Biden. Joe Rogan.
No, Joe Budden has a massive
Oh, okay, Joe Biden. I thought
in
you were
the
saying
black
Joe
community.
Rogan has a massive black audience. I was like, that's a surprise to me.
Well, no. What I'm
Joe
saying is
Budden.
Joe Rogan,
Okay.
Joe Budden is the equivalent of Joe Rogan. And I know this because Spotify got in a fight about having them both. And Joe Budden was like, if y'all want him and y'all gonna pay him 3 times more than me when you know the audience. Anyway, she could have gone on the Joe Budden podcast, sat on those white couches, new media that has a huge draw for black audience, new media that would have trended everywhere. And she didn't even go there. She went to Shannon Sharp. And Shannon Sharp, is that the place to go? Is it?
You're not going to get any tough questions. For one, we know you're
Yeah.
not going to get any tough questions.
At least Joe Budden, we know for a fact he's going to dig in your butt. He is. He's going to be like, so listen, because I've seen interviews and I'm an avid Joe Budden watcher, and I see the
Mhm.
question he asked. It's never, "You're my friends, I'm gonna ask you this." It's always straight up, "You're whack on this. Why are you whack on this?"
Yeah, and if there's any comments coming in, I want to even address some of this stuff. Okay, Chris Doherty, I don't know who you are, but look like you are military, front like you're military. People in battleground states woke up to the fact that Democrats are lying to them. Why was Harris, go back? Why was the Harris campaign, come on. Why was Harris campaign saying that they can help Americans get reelected but not do anything in the last 4 years? Americans want action, not false promises. That's the easy cop out. The Harris campaign, the Biden Harris campaign did plenty over the course of the last 4 years. It's not even it's not even close to the things that you can run down that they did. You're coming out of an economy that because of COVID, and that wasn't Trump's fault. It was the COVID was COVID, right? The
Yeah.
economy was what it was. Gas was under $2 a gallon because nobody was driving. So if the gas is sitting there rotten, they're gonna try to get as many people to buy it as possible. Once everybody got back out in the streets, the prices of gas went back up. That's like, the supply chain was screwed up because of COVID. That's
Yeah.
not Biden's fault. That's not Trump's fault. That's what happened. So did the Democrats? A lot of Democrats said what they said, but that was just the economy. So feel free, jump in
Listen, and let
comments.
me tell
We
you,
want to address some of that stuff. Go ahead.
and let me tell you, the Biden administration has done a lot of things wrong. Joe Biden was too old to be president. Kamala Harris did not do everything that honestly, I feel like she was a little. I don't like the border czar conversation because it's a weird, nuanced conversation. I think it's a good example. But I do feel
Mhm.
like when she could have stepped up as vice president and done certain things or had a bigger voice. It feels like she didn't have a big enough voice. That's not saying that she was a bad vice president or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I know she's only the vice president, but we have seen vice presidents in the past who have had a little bit more interaction and done more things. Even when Joe Biden was the vice president during Obama's administration, had a little bit of voice, had a little bit of say, and maybe it's because Joe Biden was a political force prior to being for Obama. Again, the crime bill that everybody always has something bad to say about it had some really core things that helped a lot of women out in the crime bill. So,
but that was prior to him being VP. That was when he was a senator.
what I'm saying is that he had political clout before, so people remembered him from having that political clout, and then he became vice president.
So we always have a rub when we talk about VPs. No VP outside of Dick Cheney, to me, has ever had a major. And that was because we always felt like
Dan
Bush.
Quayle?
Where's Dan Quayle now? Dan Quayle is probably 65 years old. No one knows where he's been for the last 25 years.
He's not 65. He's gonna be 85.
Dan Quayle is not. Look him up. I bet you Dan Quayle might be 70. He was a young VP. He just was. He did nothing. Dan Quayle was worthless as a VP. There's nobody. You look at George Bush, the father. He was a CIA director before. He was 77. But when is the last time you seen Dan Quayle do anything? Does anybody campaign with Dan Quayle? Does anybody ask anything about? No, nobody gives a damn about Dan Quayle. When you talk about,
spelled like Quail the bird, and it's not. That's how much I know about Dan Quayle.
Right, exactly. So then you go back to George Bush, the first George Bush, who was a CIA director before he was the vice president and went on to be president following Reagan. But but the whole conversation around what has Harris done as VP and as border czar, and she kept saying I wasn't border czar, and blah 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 blah. The fact that Trump, had the Republicans hold up the bill, which would have had some effect in trying to stop what was going on the border 6 months to a year ago. It is what it is. It's politics, and so. And here's Chris. Gas was $2 because we were exporting the fuel under Trump. Biden stopped drilling and shut down. You're wrong. We're drilling more now.
I'm a Republican, and Chris, and that's not what happened. Like, listen, there's a lot of Chris. Listen to me. I'm talking to you directly. There's a lot of things that we can be negative about the Biden administration and the Harris administration. What you're talking about is not accurate, and it's just making Republicans look really slow, like we don't know. Here's something we can go after Kamala, and we can go after Joe Biden for.
Mm-hmm.
The handling of Gaza. That response was a crap move by them, because not only are we watching you give millions to the Israelis who continue to slaughter these people, when Kamala was running, she didn't even have a person of Palestinian descent speak at not an event, not any event. Her response in the debate was basically like, we support our allies.
Mm-hmm. So
civilians should die, and that was it.
Yeah, and the whole Palestine thing was a mess, and I say that politically, not disrespecting what they're going through, because they're going through a hell of a lot.
They are, absolutely.
Do people who voted for Trump think that Trump is going to handle this any different? Do you think Trump's going to run in there to Netanyahu and say, "Stop killing the people in Gaza"? Trump don't give a shit about what's going on with the people in Gaza.
No, what people are voting for is that he's going to stand up for the Jewish community. But I don't think the Jewish community really understands what that means, because I have actual Jewish friends who are just like, we want our people back, but we also don't want to kill any more civilians. And the sad part is you can't have one without the other. And that's the most frustrating thing about this entire situation. This whole, let's have a two-state solution. Yes, in Candyland, we can have a two-state solution. That is not going to happen.
Jared Kushner is trying to buy up. Jared Kushner trying to buy lakefront property, the riverfront property.
Riverfront property. Yep.
It's so.
But I feel like Kamala's response should have been stronger. Here's how I would have responded. If I would have been on her PR team, on her team, I would have been like, listen, your response needs to be, what happened on October 7th, 2023 was disgusting. It should have never happened. Those hostages need to be brought home. But at some some point, it stops being about the Israelis bringing back those hostages and about civilians being slaughtered on a regular basis. And we need to be able to sit down at the table and say, these civilians, these Palestinians who are dying, do not need to deserve to die. It really comes down to, is what would you say, the life of the few or the life of the many? And that's
Well,
what's happening in Palestine.
but then you had a situation with the guy on the CBS Morning Show who had Tanaji Coates on there, and because he even suggested what you just said, the questions were, do you even like or respect the Jews? And so you start having these type of
And I get that. It is a fine line.
It's a fine line. And so my thing about Harris and how she handled Palestine, there was a lose-lose situation. There was no way to win that conversation, and that conversation is going to be largely ignored under Trump.
But she didn't even have the conversation. Even when Palestinians started interrupting her while she was speaking, she talked down to them. She dismissed them. And that really was not a good way to handle it if you're trying to win an election, if you're trying to win votes, if you're trying to see that a group of people are really you're trying to hear them. And again, like we keep saying, this is a lose-lose situation. There was never going to be a winning. There's never going to, even who, no matter who wins, Kamala would have won, Trump won. These people's entire lives and country are destroyed.
Absolutely.
It is. There is no, even if the war stops today, it is going to cost billions upon billions upon billions of dollars to fix that country into back to a livable space where these people can go back to.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So there's that. And so, we have the hostages. And once again, and I appreciate you, Chris, for staying engaged. We have no problem staying engaged with the folks who are watching the show. When it's all said and done, yes. And Chris's next comment.
The other area where they failed on, that is a huge issue, but not a huge issue. To me, this is the dumbest issue, and that is the existence and acceptance of the trans community.
Well, let me address this, and then we'll move over to trans.
Yeah.
To say that this current administration has done nothing to bring American hostages home is just not true. Like, who in the world do you think that even got? And so I just looked at this stuff and I said, Chris, I hope that you stay engaged in the next 45 days, and let's see how quickly Trump gets these folks home, right? Because unless you're going to go up here and just bomb all of wherever the Gaza folks are, which once again is worse than what we're dealing with. That situation in Israel and Gaza is, we've had a show about it. You can go back about a year ago. We had a conversation.
No, not even a year ago.
Huh?
Has it been a year since we had that show?
It's been a year. It's now November, so it was like late October last year. So, all right. So you wanted to move over to the trans conversation, and go for it. Let's talk about it.
Really quick, Chris, I really want you to check out that show. That show was done with people who are actually living in, some people were living in Gaza, some people are living in Israel right now, Jewish people and Palestinians who joined us for that show. And it was, and a former national security advisor, not national. What was he? What was our
There was one gentleman who was a historian out of Florida on Israeli history, and the other gentleman actually lives in Israel now. Was the other so, and then you're talking about the other brother who we had on, who was former armed services.
Yes, armed services.
That's correct.
So the other issue that they did not do a good job on was the trans rights issue. And here's the trans rights issue. It's the dumbest issue to ever exist. It's dumb. I'm sorry. To the trans community, I'm sorry. You can hate me, be mad at me. I kind of don't care. Your issue is dumb. It shouldn't even be discussed. This should not be a conversation that even come up. The trans community is what are we at? 0.5, 0.3% of the conversation.
0.5% of U.S. adults who said
0.5% of U.S. adults.
Yeah.
Some weird story got out there that there are surgeries being pushed on kids, which is not the case. I know that. They're not pushing surgery on kids. You can't just easily walk into some doctor's office and be like, hey, I want to transition. That's not how that works. Even as a child with parents, there are so many hoops they make you jump through as a parent, as a whatever, if you're going to do this. So the fact that this got brought up in conversation as a voting issue, when it's not, is beyond me. And the Harris campaign and the Biden administration have done a horrible job explaining this and walking people through, like, hey, you know what? The right is saying this. Here's what actually happens. A
Yeah.
child says they want to transition into a female, they don't just automatically transition to female. They are assigned a therapist. If they do it at school, the parents are now brought in. They're brought in with a guidance counselor. It's a whole conversation. They're assigned a therapist. They're assigned a special doctor. They have to go through all of these hoops to do it. And if the kid still decides to do it, that whole surgery cannot happen until that child is 18 or over. That's after hormone blockers, after conversations, so many things. The fact that the Biden administration and the Harris campaign have let it go on so long thinking, oh, little kid wants to be a girl. Ta-da! Surgery, you're a girl. And everybody just went along with this when it's not the case. And there was no defense.
Right. And so you just had probably about a 90-second soliloquy, and I didn't interrupt you on purpose.
Sorry.
Right? No, don't apologize, because you're right. You're right. And the challenge is that this is what the Trump administration did in 30 seconds.
Taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That was absolutely, to me, the most effective ad he had. At least what I saw in Georgia.
It's effective. The ad is effective. Is it accurate 100%? No. Because, again,
doesn't matter.
This is why the Biden administration and the Harris campaign sucked so hard. Do you guys actually know how many how many male to female athletes are competing in female sports right now across the United States? Does anybody know?
I have no idea.
There's 3. There are 3. This is not some widespread issue that's happening. And if the administration and the Harris campaign were smart, if they would have said, hey, we don't have enough data at this, what we're going to do is start an actual, clinical trial to see if it really has a difference. We're going to run this over 3 years so that we can definitively tell the transgender community, so congratulations on being a female, but because of your natural body shape, and what happens with your body, you can't play in sports because look at all the stats for the past 3 years that we've gone through. And they're only worried about female sports. There are actually more female to male transgender athletes who play on male sports teams than there are female, but those ones are completely ignored like it doesn't matter. So are we really looking at this, or it's just we found a hot button issue that everybody's going to be mad about on the right, and the left is just like, well, we love all transgender people and we're accepting. No, this is not.
But here's the thing: a lot of everybody on the left they don't love the transgender community. See,
no, you're right about that. That's a fact.
So what happened was the Trump administration found an issue that the Democrats had no effective way to rebut the issue, right? Yeah. Because of the fear that they have of the LGBTQ community, TIQIA community. Forgive me if I think I missed a letter or two.
We don't care. All the alphabet people, we're talking to you.
But so my point was, she had no response. That ad ran over and over and over again. And so when I heard the portion of the ad that talked about that it was paying for prisoners to get surgery, I said to myself, that to me made me pause, and I was expecting something to come out to give you some sort of response to that, and it didn't happen. Then you have the situation with Charlemagne, who is one of the loudest voices, who's left of center, and he was a key part of that ad. Him and Envy. So important, so big to this conversation, and they had no response to that, and so you look at that and you say the people who weren't banging and wearing a red hat, and the people who weren't, whatever on the left,
with a giant flag on the back of his truck,
right? That wasn't, those people were never in question. It was the people who went into the voting booth very quietly said. And I had a friend of mine the other day who put together, he was advocating for Harris heavily, and said when he got to the voting booth, that issue made him almost just vote down ballot and not vote for president. And then you say, that this is someone who was working hard, put up his own money to try to get her elected, who still got in the booth and said, this is not an issue. It is an issue of 1.6% of Americans say they
and less than that. Because in the commercial, she's talking about jail inmates who are transgender, who are transitioning and them getting their surgery. And I think what I surmise, because there's no way she's advocating for a surgery of that cost to happen for prison. What I think she's trying to say is, if you, before you went to jail, you were prepping for surgery, that they would keep up the hormones or whatever you needed in jail to whenever you happen to get out, you would be able to get that surgery again. But again, I'm assuming, because for me, I don't want to pay for anybody to get elective surgery while they're in prison. I don't care. Because again, are we going to have the female inmates allowed to get a boob job, vaginal tightening, diastasis recti surgery to get better stomachs? And again, I mean, are we going to do that? But also, hate to be bouncing back and forth, but we're talking about in jail alone, less than that 0.5% of the population who's asking for this. Right. And, you know, they also like to bring up the military service members who are transitioning in the service. We're talking even less than the jail people who are trying to transition people who are in the armed service. And let me tell you something about that. I'm for an armed service member. You want to transition? That's fine with me. The reason why is because you are giving up your entire life to the U.S. service. You have paid money. You're getting money. You're giving up a lot of your life. You want the surgery? Cool. Forget it. Get it. I don't care. I don't care. You are serving your country and will continue to serve your country. The U.S. owns you. The least we can do is give you a vagina if you want one, or a penis if you want one. Congratulations.
But the point you're making, you know, I'm not even going there.
I threw you off. I'm sorry.
I'm not even going there. The issue, when it's all said and done, 3 to 5% of U.S. adults acknowledge they're part of the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
Of that community, there's a very tiny percentage of that represents the T.
Yes.
But that T drove this campaign for Kamala Harris into the mud.
Yeah. Well, not in the mud, but it definitely didn't help her, and she didn't help herself. And then Trump started running a campaign or a social media groundswell of normal gays. Did you see the normal gays campaign?
Now, see, I didn't see there was no normal gays campaign running in Florida. Running in Georgia.
So there was a normal gays social media campaign and social media push of gay men who are like, we're regular gays. We're normal gay guys. We just want to get married and be with our boyfriends. We don't agree with transgender and all these different type of, you know, pronouns and this and that. We're normal gays. It was very much like, I'm a cool mom. Like, it was very much Mean Girls. Like, I'm a cool mom. I don't make you, like, do your homework. I'm a cool mom. I don't make you, your boyfriend wants to spend the night. That's fine with me. I'm a cool mom. That's what it came off to me. But that got, again, for the Republicans, got a lot of groundswell of gay men saying that I'm just a regular gay guy who I'm a straight guy, except for I have sex with my boyfriend. Like, that's what it sounded like to me, but it worked. These weird little things worked. And the Harris campaign either wasn't paying attention or just had nothing to combat it.
Well, you know, there's a lot of influence for the LGBTQ community in politics, in media, in the left's everything, and they're part of the world. They're part of the community, right? You have to have the courage to push back and say, this is not the time for us to focus on that, because middle America, who we need their votes as well, the working class, who we need their votes as well, that's not going to help us win this election. You were already struggling in Michigan because of what we talked about earlier with Israel and Palestine. So where we know there's a large swell of Arab Americans that are in Michigan, that you weren't going to get those votes like you've gotten them in the past. And so then there's Michigan, which you really, really needed. A lot of middle class, a lot of working class people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, right? And then you have that issue. And then the whole thing that you know, two communities, we know Hispanic men and white women were a huge defeater of the Harris campaign, right? And you say to yourself, why is that? And when it comes down to the bottom line is, something that Eddie Glaude, and I'm gonna play this clip for you. When it comes down to America, America is about adjacency. It's all about closeness to white males and the influence and the power that white males have over this country. And so you look at it and you say, Eddie Glaude broke it down pretty good. I'm gonna play this for you guys.
Is under threat. The demographic shifts. The country isn't what all of these racially ambiguous children on Cheerios commercials are confusing the hell out of me.
Eddie, a lot of people voted because their life's too damn expensive, and it was here, and
they voted for. You're telling me, Stephanie, that all of these people who believe that their lives are that bread is too high and eggs are too high, that they voted for a convicted felon. A guy who said we can grab the pea.
I think that a lot
they voted for this guy.
I'm not defending it, but I think there are tons of people that don't pay attention to, and I'm not defending it, don't pay attention to politics at all. But while we live in the most prosperous country in the world, people are saying life's not fair, I'm not doing well, my son's still living in the basement, I can't seem to get a job, I don't like the status quo, I'm voting for something else, and he was the person.
I love you to life,
I love you,
but I do not believe that. I cannot believe that. And the reason I think you believe it is because you don't want to believe that that's what's really motivating them. It's always the case. People don't want to believe what the country actually is, because if they believe it, they're going to have to confront what's in them. I don't believe that. They voted for a crook, a person who they know is stealing from, just doing everything to undermine the so-called country that they love. And then they're telling us the BS that it's economics. We know that's not true.
So there's a lot that go ahead.
Chris, I am going to kick your butt when I see you. Trust me. I just realized who the commenter was because I wasn't paying attention to the full name. Chris, you're gonna get it. I'm telling you right now, when I see you, you're gonna get it. Chris is a friend from high school. Chris is actually somebody who I planned our last 10-year reunion with. Chris is a great guy, and Chris has actually served our country. So sure. So I'm very well aware of Chris. As far as this clip is concerned, America, I don't know why Eddie's acting so weird about it. I don't know why you're screaming at Stephanie to get her to understand your point of view when she's not going to. She's trying to make it as easy as possible to get to her show to just talk about people are worrying about money and the economy and this and that. But we have to understand, and I think as Black people, and people will never understand this, is that America is racist, and it has been. Everyone's not racist, but the country has been built on racism, and a lot of these things still exist. A lot of these things still exist in white people, whether they want to admit it to themselves or not. They do exist. They will take a Black woman who is talented, who has all the bells and whistles and all these types of things, and be like, well, she's smart, but she's dumb, she's this, and she's not. And it's just like, we as Black women, and again, this hurts my soul, even as a Republican, that as Black women, we have to be beyond reproach. We have to be perfect. We have to do everything the exact way. We can't get too angry. We can't be too happy. We can't be too sassy. We can't be too this. We can't be too anything, because people always find fault in us. But someone, a white male like a Donald Trump, can half-ass his way through his entire life, which he's absolutely half-assed his way through his entire life, and he gets to be president. It's exhausting.
So,
I mean, it's a
fact. Chris, friend of ours, the super producer, Eddie Glaude is not a reporter. Right?
No.
Eddie Glaude is a highly respected professor from Princeton, and he normally, the reason why that
who grew up lower middle class, who grew up lower middle class.
Right. The reason why it was titled, that clip was titled, "Y'all done broke Eddie Glaude," is because Eddie Glaude is on TV every day. He's on television every day, and he has these type of conversations, and he never loses his cool like this. But this is this is where we are, right? What we understand about, and this is Eddie Glaude, he's highly respected, highly respected professor and of the professor at
And
African
again,
Studies at
he went to
Princeton.
Morehouse. He grew up poor.
Yeah.
Like he didn't start becoming actually a TV commentator. I want to say in the last 4 or 5 years. That wasn't what he was doing before. He was just a professor,
Well,
simple.
He's right. But
middle American.
but the proximity to whiteness, and particularly the proximity to white male dominancy, the proximity to patriarchy, is what had people vote for Donald Trump, who spent the last 4 years, because mind you, he filed to run again as soon as he lost. So we already knew he was going to take this time, make money, and drive this up the way that he did. And the fact that coming down to everything, it's so much stuff what has happened over the course of the last 10 years, not even the last 4 years, the last 10 years since he walked down the escalator in 2015. That you just say, if anybody else, I don't care if any other demographic, no white women, we saw that with Hillary Clinton, no black women, we saw that with Kamala Harris. Nobody would get away with what Trump has gotten away with, but it is what it is. It is what it is, and that's the frustrating part about so many of it. For people to question Kamala Harris,
nobody will get it until you're a black woman. And no one's going to be in my shoes. Even again, I keep saying that I'm a Republican. I have to keep saying this over and over again. Like, no one will understand it, that we have to be so good all the time. You know,
right.
I get it from different directions all the time. And it's so annoying and frustrating to me that, you know, sometimes people are like, well, you're not black enough because you're married to an Indian guy. What? That not going to do with that. You don't do this right. You're not good at that. You don't do this. It's just a crazy, just weird thing you have to deal with. The other thing I want to bring up is that people keep saying the same thing about the indoctrination of children. Chris brought it up, but I've seen it multiple times about the indoctrination of children. I need to make this very clear. The indoctrination of children is not happening by the LGBTQIA community. So many letters. Can we just cut it down to 4 like it was previously, guys? Like, let's just, I can't say
do what they want. Do what they want.
But the children are indoctrinated, molested, and sexually abused by white males. That is what happens. There have been at least 11 white males in the past 3 months, some of whom have been ministers in the church, and you can look it up on the news, who have been accused and have proof of them sexually abusing children, grooming children. So what are we doing about that? What are we doing about religious leaders who are grooming children, who are sexually abusing these children? It's always brought back to gay in the schools. Books are so bad. Drag queen. But we never talk about, for example, in my area, there's actually 3 things that happened in the past 2 years. One, a black male conservative black male, also worked in this church, was the cheer coach, already side-eyeing that, who had abused 13 girls. Those girls finally came forward. He was arrested. He's in jail now. He just pled guilty. Mm-hmm. Another teacher got accused of abusing 3 girls in his high school, a white male teacher that happened in the Miami area, white male. Mm-hmm. There are men who are grooming children. Mm-hmm. This is not happening at drag shows. It's not happening in bathrooms where everybody's like, oh, the transgender people are going to go into the bath. It is happening by men who are claiming to be conservative and hiding behind specific things. What are we doing about that to keep children from being indoctrinated? Groomed, harmed.
You have a whole white supremacist that owns X, that owns one of the largest media platforms in the world. You think they're going to let for the most part? You have the Rupert Murdoch who owns Fox and all of the different entities that's under Fox. You know, when it's all said and done, it is white males who still primarily own our media, who primarily own all the 7 mountains that folks who are in the Christian space know exactly what I'm talking about. And so, are they going to go out here and talk about all the white men that are grooming children?
No, and that's the disturbing part about it. Right. Everybody keeps screaming indoctrination, drag shows, this and that, when it's not happening. I've mentioned this in the show. My kids have gone to drag reading time. It is not what everybody thinks it is, where the drag queen is wearing some sexy, flexy outfit. The drag queen was dressed as a sheep. She was doing Little Bo Peep, and she was dressed as a sheep. Like, how is that? That's not indoctrination. Right. When the drag queen is dressed like a sheep. Like, what are you all talking about?
It's great. And let me just say another comment by Chris. Appreciate your service. My wife's also a veteran. And one thing he just mentioned is, once again, I'm going back to Chris because you say you know the brother. I don't know, black, white. He's got a mask on his face. I have no idea what his race is.
Oh, Chris is white. Chris is a white gentleman.
He's a white gentleman. He's a service member. Those are all things that are easily normally going to go on the Republican side.
And Chris, for the record, you're not middle class either, by the way. Let's not go there because you are not middle class by any means. So if you're bringing out Eddie Glaude's, $3 million net worth that he has now, you are not middle class anymore, Chris. You used to be. You're not now, since it's you have to be middle class right now. I'm middle class right now.
Right.
My husband has a blue collar job.
So for the thought that Eddie Glaude, as a professor earning supposedly an estimated net worth $3.5 million, can no longer relate to the working class anymore is a narrative. It's simply a narrative.
How can Trump relate to the middle class?
Right.
It's never been more.
Right. So that's the funny part about when I hear people make these statements, and I laugh at the fact that this man is going to do everything in his power to take as much money out of the pockets of all of us. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're working class. I don't care if you work on a farm. I don't care if you're undocumented.
Kamala has not been middle class in a very long time. She can't relate. Biden hasn't been middle class in a long time. He can't relate. Obama has been middle. Like, none of these people who everybody claims they understand the middle class. No, none of these MFers understand the middle class. None of them. None of them do.
I don't agree with that.
Right? What? How?
I don't agree with that at all, because
oh my God.
Obama, up until his presidency, was still paying back student loans, right? You got to think about also that Kamala Harris was a public defender.
He lived across the street from Farrakhan. Are you kidding me? He lives across the street from Farrakhan.
What is
in
that
that same neighborhood?
Mean? What does that
mean?
Even
He
mean?
lived in a wealthy neighborhood.
Obama was not wealthy until he started selling books post-election, post his running president. But it's a different. But my point is, regardless of when they became wealthy, you can't tell me someone just because they might have been wealthy now for 15 or 20 years, all of a sudden they have no history and they're 60 years old of what it means to be poor or middle class when that's where they were. It just doesn't. Those memories just don't get erased in the course of a 20-year run. When it comes down to where I was and where we've been as a middle class family, doesn't mean I don't remember eating Spam out of a can, right?
Ew,
doesn't mean, well, when I ate pork. 30 years ago, before I stopped eating pork, everybody ate Spam. That was part of food. But point being, it's so easy for someone to say someone who's been wealthy or had means for the last 15 or 20 years is not relatable to the middle class, but someone who has never, in Donald Trump, who has never been poor, somehow he relates better to the middle class. It's bullshit. But it's a narrative that the Democrats don't have a good answer for it. And part of the reason why they don't have a good answer for it, they don't have a good answer for it right now, because on one hand, they're enjoying the progress that they're having. And I keep having this illustration in my head of saying, when it comes down to the Democrats, and they have to satisfy so many people. They got to satisfy white liberals. They got to satisfy progressives. They got to satisfy the working class. They got to satisfy Hispanics and Asians and blacks and black women and black men. And God knows, right now, the way the Republican Party is right now, they have to satisfy one demographic, and that's people who decide to line up behind someone with a red hat. And that's where we are. And so when it's all said and done, I know there's plenty of people who held their nose and voted for Trump. I believe that. I believe there's plenty of white people.
That, and you know that. And I've been against Trump. Miguel knows this. My family knows this. I am a diehard Republican. Trump has never represented Republican values. He's never represented Republican values. I've said this multiple times on the show. I will continue to say this. He's never represented Republican values. I would love for my boo, Paul Ryan, to run it.
Paul Ryan ain't thinking about none of us. He about to go buy some land in Jamaica or somewhere, or Ireland or Switzerland or somewhere. He's out of here.
Chris, let's talk about really quick.
Before we transition, I got to finish this point on Chris, because Chris dropped this in there, and he said that Eddie Glaude is not worried about grocery prices like the middle class. Let me educate you real quick, Chris. As a black man, Eddie Glaude may be in a comfortable situation, but I assure you that he has proximity to middle class and poorness in his family. Eddie Glaude is on television every day advocating for the means. He's a professor of Africana studies. This is what he does. He focuses on throwing napkins. This is what he does. Focus on the African American diaspora and the things that they deal with. If you think that any black person you see on television, if you think that LeBron James doesn't have people that still reach out to him that is in his family that are still having middle class issues, it's
example.
It's not a horrible example. It is not a horrible example. I know people who are wealthy. I know the issues that they deal with because in essence, you still have this issue that you feel like you have to take care of your entire community, right? You have the LeBron James who goes back and starts his own school, and Jalen Rose goes back to Detroit and starts his own school. We still come from communities that are still in really, really bad shape. And so then we're like, well, he's wealthy. Why don't he go take care of all of them? Why is it a responsibility of LeBron James to work his ass off and give up his $800-900 million to go take care of a whole community?
And I don't think that's what Chris is. I agree with Chris. I think once you get to a certain point, sure, you're advocating a little bit for, but you might not remember, you might not get it. And that's just the nature of the situation. But I'll go back to what I said. Trump's never been poor. He's never been middle class. Right. He doesn't understand what the middle class is going through at all whatsoever. Right. And that is an absolute fact that he has never. You want to say J.D. Vance understands it? Absolutely. J.D. Vance understands it because J.D. Vance grew up dirt, dog, ditch poor, crackhead mother, grandmother struggling, Appalachia, like he gets it, but Trump saying that he gets it it's not a thing. So just to pivot a little bit, because we're going to wrap up the show because we have been talking this for a while, is discussing how Latino and Latinx voters feel right now, and some of them are having to face some really weird truths. There's a story of Angel Rodriguez going around about him voting for Trump, and he sends his kids outside, and his kids are rejected by the neighbors. And this is not, we're making up the story. There's a full video of him sending his kids outside, and then the neighbors across the street screaming and cussing back at him, saying, go back to your country, and the neighbor having a gun in his whole same thing. There are videos of other people saying that they hope their family members don't get deported because they did it the right way. Everybody's in danger. If you came here if you immigrated here and you're not 100% you don't have your citizenship, everybody is up for grabs. My husband's best friend has been in the country now for, I want to say 11 years. His brothers and sisters are here. His sister is married. All these people came from Trinidad. Mm-hmm. None of them are U.S. citizens. All of them have residency in one way or another, but none of them are citizens. And Stephen Miller is talking about removing naturalization and basically going down the line of your immigration status. If you're an illegal immigrant who's committed crime, you're gone. Which, again, I'm cool with. Bye. If you've committed a serious felony as an illegal immigrant, you should be in the first thing smoking back to your country. I don't care if you came from Canada, Mexico, Trinidad, Guyana, England. Bye. Mm-hmm. The next phase would be immigrants who have committed low-level crimes. That's traffic crimes or anything like that. You're also getting deported. I'm a little iffy about that. Now we're going to people who are in this country, who are working, who are under naturalization status, who are now also could be up to get deported. And we go down a slippery slope because we're wanting to improve the economy, but we're wanting to remove people who help the economy. I'm not talking about the illegal immigrants who commit crimes. I'm talking about migrants or immigrants who come here and do the jobs that Americans don't want to do. So we're going to improve the economy, but we're going to triple the cost of construction work, and we're going to triple the cost of fresh fruit being harvested, because that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Immigrants who come to this country are coming to this job taking our jobs, which is the dumbest thing anybody's ever said. They're taking our jobs. Yeah, so I don't work at a hotel as a waitress. I don't work at a hotel as a housekeeper. I don't pick fruit. I don't do roofs. I don't do any of that. They're not taking our jobs. Honestly, if I saw a white man on the roof right now, I'd be called the police. I think he's breaking into your house. I wouldn't think he's up there repairing your roof. I think he's breaking into your home. So we're talking about improving the economy, but how does it improve the economy? Go ahead. My rant's done.
So, this gentleman who's going to be the board czar, his name is Tom Homan. He was on 60 Minutes. And on 60 Minutes, the question was asked, can you, and I'm paraphrasing, which I can find, I don't have the clip already loaded up. The question was asked, basically the question was about deporting people and whether or not can you deport whole families, or are you going to break up families was basically the question. And his response, paraphrasing, was that, yeah, the whole family can be deported. Says it with a straight face. So let's go back to your example. Let's just say that, because here's the thing, they want to always focus once again on the worst of it. If there's someone's a criminal, they deserve to pay. And the other thing that there's a gentleman out there by the name of Danny Collins. I've been following him. He's been popping up on my thread here recently. He's a former white supremacist, former Trump supporter who has now recanted his position. And he talks about how when he's talking to some of his buddies who are in the roofing industry and places, exactly what you just said. Like, you're worrying about, you're all gung ho for Trump, but when he deports all of your workers that are going and helping you put these roofs on, you're going to be in trouble because you're not going to have any workers. The other thing that he talked about, he said when he was in prison, he spent 10 years in prison, and he talked about if there were any people that were illegal immigrants that were in prison, they, one, had to serve out their time in prison, which taxpayers are paying for, before they get deported. So you're paying for that person twice. You're paying to take care of them in prison, and then you're paying to deport them. But let's just say that person who's locked up, their wife is a naturalized citizen. They have children who were born here in America. Are you going to take that whole family and ship that whole family away? That's the question, the type of questions that we need to ask. It's please tell me, Chris, when Denzel Washington said, "Stop identifying as race." You're talking about Morgan Freeman. Is who you're talking about?
Morgan Freeman.
You're not. It was not Denzel Washington, bro. You're talking to two black people who really know this stuff. But when it comes down to Tom Homan, and when it comes down to Marco Rubio, and when it comes down to Vivek Ramaswamy, and when it comes down to Elon Musk, we're getting ready to be into, huh?
Did you say his name right?
Whose name did I mispronounce?
Vivek.
I said Vivek Ramaswamy.
That's not what you're
saying. Okay, so how do I say his name?
Vivek.
Okay. Well, bottom line is, he's getting ready to be a major problem, right? He's going to be a major problem for us. When we start talking about Trump, when he talked about what he's talking about doing to basically white reparations, taking money from endowments and going back to people who feel like they were in, and we had that slight debate before our conversation, right? Before our show.
Yeah.
Everything, we have no idea now. Well, no, we have a pretty good idea of what's getting ready to happen. And with the Senate and the House of Representatives and the judges all lined up, when you talk about what's going on in Georgia, he's not going to jail. He's not, all those cases are pretty much a wash. They're talking about a sentencing hearing coming up in the next week or so, whatever. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
I think the only thing that I take solace in is that with you and me and a lot of people that I'm close to, outside of our family, close friends, we all fall in very middle America. And again, Trump doesn't really give a damn about middle Americans. So we're not going to get anything and we're not going to lose anything. We're just going to be stagnant in this entire situation. But people, again, immigrants are going to be affected. The trans community, whatever, y'all spokesperson, Caitlyn Jenner already spoke for y'all and said that I'm not a trans advocate, whatever the heck that means. But the people are going to be affected are going to be the people who are above me and Miguel's not pay grade, but bracket. And people are going to be really affected are people who are below. Middle Americans aren't going to lose or gain anything. We're not. And
I don't agree with that, but that's another show. I don't agree with that. I think that when you start talking about taxes, when you start talking about these tariffs, if he implements these tariffs, everything's going to be more expensive, without question. And that's going to affect us all. He's not going to fix the economy out the gate.
No. He's not going to fix the economy at all.
Right, and that's what's going to affect middle America the most. From a standpoint of our overall psyche as a nation, it's not going to improve. folks are going to be extremely, for a while, you're going to see stress levels are going to really go up without question. You start talking about closing the Department of Education, when you start making statements like what Trump made
and that's
earlier.
huge. I don't think people keep thinking about, again, the indoctrination thing in school, the indoctrination thing. It's not just the indoctrination thing. If we put education back down to the state level, and I talked to Miguel this in the last show, and then we talked about the production meeting, we could have certain states like West Virginia or other weird states like Mississippi who could say a female child only really needs to go to school to a certain grade point. The states would be able to make that decision and be able to do that. The states would now be able to, for Florida, who wants to say that slavery was where slaves had learned a lifelong skill, that could be changed and that could be taught in the schools, when it's just not true. It's not a reality. And I'm very much against each state, each education being able to teach something different. People keep talking about, oh, well, now our kids will have the opportunity to go to private school. No, they won't have an opportunity to go to private school. You will still be forced to come out of pocket to pay for private school if you choose to pay for private school.
Do y'all really believe folks who have their kids
private school, your kid will still get crap education? Again, my nanny went to a Christian school. The intern Alexis went to a Christian school. She will admit I didn't get the best education. My kids go to a Christian school for preschool, 3K and preschool. They will not be doing that because Christian schools do not give kids an actual real education. They don't. It's just the reality of it.
And that's what has been voted for. Do you think people make these private schools to allow anybody in these private schools? No, your kid is not going to be going to these special private schools.
And even funnier, private schools, guys. The only reason why I know this is because what happened to my older cousin when she lost her teaching license. You don't have to have a teaching license to teach at the private school.
Right.
You don't.
It's a private school. They're making their own rules. They're making their own rules. They're putting their own books in there. There is no regulation. You guys, man, have to understand what we're dealing with here. Regulations have reasons and meaning, and they're there to keep guardrails up to make sure that people have. It's crazy. It's insane that but hey, this is where we are. And so you start dealing with. Say again.
If you want your child to have a good education, you have to have the money to move to a good school district. Because in a good school district, all the public schools are good. Elementary, middle school, high school. For example, in my area in Orlando, Windermere, where all the best public schools are.
Mm-hmm.
Those homes in that area are $2 million and up. It's a very wealthy area.
So when house interest rates are at 6% and 7%, who's moving right now? People with money are not moving right now. There's inventory sitting out there that nobody is buying right now because the interest rates are too high.
Especially happening in the Orlando area. Everybody thought it'd be great to move to Orlando. There is so much inventory here. It is ridiculous. Really quick, because again, show's almost over. Do we want to go something fun, or do you want to go through his appointment list? Trump's appointment list for his.
We'll do appointment list next week. He ain't done. What fun stuff you want to do? Do I need to do our hunt what, or are we just going without that? What are we doing?
I'm trying to find something.
What? Is this a hunt what?
Yeah, go to the hot one to find something fun to talk about. Oh, this is fun. They're shooting Spirit Airlines flights out the sky.
What's fun about that? Oh, God.
That's all I got. They are shooting Spirit Airlines flights out the sky. Now, if the FAA says that no flights can fly to Haiti because, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's not funny. A Spirit Airlines flight actually got fired at by real gunfire and had to be diverted to Dominican Republic, and now you can't fly. That's how bad Haiti is. I'm laughing because of all the flights going there is Spirit. Spirit is like riding the Greyhound bus and hoping for the best.
Yeah. So there's that. And so before I get up out here, whoever did this creative, we got to give them a shout out because wrong clip. Hold on, let me go. There we go. So black women are tired. Somebody put this using AI. And so basically this is the emotional roller coaster that the black women supposed to be going through right now. And the way it closes out, I got to give them a shout out for the creativity. You put your cape on and it's all said and done. The cape didn't work.
No, we are tired though, you know.
Black
And
women are
Chris,
tired.
Chris, you're watching the show. I appreciate it. Chris, you'll never understand it, and
Yeah.
I hope you don't ever understand it. It is being a Black woman is exhausting. It is
Yeah.
hard. It is
Black women
rough.
hanging the cape up. They're hanging the cape up.
I know that you think that we should not have to identify as Black. I am very, very proud of being a Black woman. It is a true joy to stand in the footsteps of some amazing women as Black women. I'm proud. My husband is proud that he married a Black woman. You know, it's a wonderful thing, but we are tired. We are tired of having to help and fix and be strong and be understanding. And when there's tears, we have to help. We have to march. We have to fix. It's just, you know, even you know, we have neighbors who are Trump supporters. Something breaks, they come to us. They come to me and can you fix this? Can you help? And we're always like, yeah, we'll fix it. Don't worry about it. You need me to watch your kids. I'll watch your kids. It's just, I'm tired. I'm tired.
Yeah,
I'm tired.
So
I just want to take the wig off sometimes and lay down and not have to deal with all the pressure that we have to deal with. Don't assume my race when
but this as a white male, this is fun.
Chris, I know you're white. Like, literally,
Right.
like, stop it.
But you know,
and Chris, I love you. Chris is, and let me just put this out there. Chris is a good guy.
I don't doubt it.
Salt of the earth. When it was me and him, we had to basically kick everybody else out of the high school reunion planning committee.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know they were kicked out, but it was just me and him talking to each other on the phone. Like, what are we doing? How are we doing this? Where's the bill for this? What are we paying for this? It was just me and him.
I don't doubt Chris, and Chris, I appreciate you engaging with us on the show today. We appreciate you. But there are things that you don't understand, and you will never understand, and it's okay for you to accept that, because the privilege of being a white male is something I will never understand. It will never be a part of my life, and it's fine. It is what it is. And so we're for those for those who are going to benefit, and there's many people who can joke about what's happened, joked about this election, because it's really not going to benefit their day to day. There were programs that were proposed to help me as a Black business owner to get a leg up, to even be able to be competitive, that are not going to happen now. And I'm so used to it that I'm just gonna keep it moving. We're gonna figure it out. That's what we do. And for people who say, "Oh, Black folks don't need any help," okay. So anyway, great show. I'll make this commitment.
YouTube. Lots of splice up. A lot of splice up and put on YouTube as clips.
Yeah, we will. But here's my commitment. When Trump was elected last time, I took a break. I took about a 2-3 year. We took about 2-3 year break. We was just like, we did. I remember. We didn't broadcast. And so, but no, we're not doing it this time. We got to stay in this game, stay in the conversation.
And guys, we'll start bringing the fun back. You know, we're going into all the shows coming back. We will have more about the shows.
Do you watch Yellowstone? Do you watch Yellowstone?
They killed Kevin Costner, so I'm not watching it now. I know how it ends, so I'm good. They killed his character off.
Well, we already knew that was coming. I didn't realize it was going to be the first damn episode, and so the whole season is going to be about trying to figure that out. Because it's so funny. I was at the gym last week with one of our coaches. He just started watching Yellowstone, and so he's only on like season 3. I'm like, man, you're gonna love it. It's so funny. We had this whole conversation about issues, and here we are talking about Yellowstone, which is one of the whitest of shows ever, and it's so well written. It's such a great show, and I love Kevin Costner. He's never given me any reason not to. But he said, my guy said, "Oh man, they killed John Dutton." I was like, "The hell they did? They're not gonna kill John Dutton. He is the show." I did it with an attitude. I was like, "Who done told you that? Who on these internet streets and told you that damn lie?" And I go in there, the first episode, he in the damn bathroom laid down. I'm like, No, that's his son. That's the older son who's a little softy. That's him, right? That's him, right? I said, they killed John. If it's a spoiler alert, oh well, it's been out.
They don't care.
So,
and they elected John Krasinski as Sexiest Man Alive, and everybody mad about it.
I don't even know who that is. Who?
John Krasinski from The Office, from A Quiet Place.
No idea.
He had naps. That's all that matters. Anyway, I'm going to bed. I got to get the spackle off my face, and I'm going to sleep. We'll see you guys next week. I love you. We will be back on Monday. Hope you guys still tune in.
All right. Appreciate y'all. Have a great evening, week. We'll see you next week.